The most common and underlooked mistake email marketers make and why their emails still land in the spam. What's up, guys? This is Digital George. In this video, I'm going to cover why your emails can still land in the spam simply because you don't have a DMARC record configured. Without wasting any time, let's dive into it. What is a DMARC? It basically stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. What in the hell? It simply is just another way to authenticate your domain. If you guys watch some of my older videos on how to configure an SPF and DKIM records, and I'll link them somewhere on this video or on the description box right below this one, you'll come to find that authentication is the fundamental step for any email marketer. As an email marketer, if you don't properly authenticate your domain, your emails will 100% land in the spam, or in worst case scenario, get rejected by the ISP, for example, Gmail. Okay, so let's just go back to what a DMARC is. In a nutshell, a DMARC record is a policy. It is a background check. It basically tells the receiving server, let's use Gmail as an example, what to do with your email after it verifies whether you have an SPF or a DKIM set up. This is to ensure you really are who you say you are and not some old fart spammer. So all these records and the DMARC policy at the end of the day are in place to ensure that there are no phishing attempts made on your sending domain. Okay, so if the receiving server, for example, Gmail, determines that you do have an SPF and a DKIM inside of your DNS, the DMARC policy becomes irrelevant. It will not be applied in this instance. And that is simply because a DMARC's policy is a last layer of defense. It tells the receiving server what to do with your email, specifically if there are no SPF or DKIM records. Now, here is the fatal mistake a lot of email marketers make. They just think that because they have an SPF and a DKIM set up, they don't need a DMARC, right? 100% wrong, because there are some email servers out there that will still mark your emails as spam if you don't have a DMARC. Don't ask me why. But at least with a DMARC, it will give them some clear instructions on when to do that. Now, there are 3 different types of DMARC policies one can have. The first one's called none, but it's the least strictest. It tells the receiving server, let's use Gmail as an example, to still deliver your message even though SPF and DKIM authentication fails. So in other words, it's not going to hurt your deliverability if you actually have this policy set up. But you also have to take into consideration, it will not protect you from scammers and in the event of phishing, so you should think twice before using it. So the second one's called quarantine. It's stricter than the none, but it's not the strictest. And this policy usually has a percentage score attached to it, like 25 or 50%. What this means is Gmail will place, let's just say, 25% of the messages in the spam folder if it fails authentication. Last policy is called reject. It's the strictest policy and it's the most recommended one to use because it's the most effective, assuming that you have the DKIM and the SPF records set up in your DNS properly. And what the reject policy does is it tells Gmail to reject the email if authentication fails, which means that your email will bounce. So after all that's said and done, which one should you use? It all really boils down to your tolerance. If you know deep down that your SPF and DKIM are configured properly in your DNS and they're not going to change, go ahead and use the last one, which is the strictest. It's the reject. But bear in mind, if something does change, if you tweak up your DNS, if you accidentally delete one of those records, your emails are going to result in a bounce. They're not going to get delivered to your recipient. So just this mere fact alone makes me a little bit paranoid in wanting to use the reject policy, because even though I know deep down nothing's going to change in my SPF or DKIM, if for whatever reason authentication fails, with the reject policy, my emails are always going to bounce. And I don't want that to happen. So as an email marketer, I choose the first one, which is the none, because it's the most flexible. Even though authentication fails, the emails will still be delivered. It's just not going to land in the inbox for obvious reasons. It's going to hit the recipient spam folder, but I'm okay with that because I know that my SPF and DKIM is never going to change, so my authentication is always going to be 100% perfect and it's going to pass. But in that rare event that it doesn't and it lands in the spam, well, at least it lands in the spam and it doesn't get completely rejected by the reject policy. And believe it or not, there's still a tiny percentage of people that open up your emails in the spam folder. All right, guys and gals, hopefully by this stage, you understand the differences between the three policies. Now let's go ahead and take a look on how you can actually set this up in your DNS. I happen to use Cloudflare, so I'm going to show you my Cloudflare screen. All right, I'm logged into my Cloudflare DNS. And as you can see, I have my DMARC in check. The type is a TXT. And this is the value that I'm using, the none. Okay, so this is the second policy, which is the quarantine. As you can see, there's a percentage score, 25%. And if you remember correctly, the score actually indicates how many messages should be placed in the spam folder if it fails SPF and DKIM authentication. In this case, it's 25%. This value right here basically means to send the authentication reports to a valid email address. So make sure yours doesn't show example.com. It actually shows your domain. So in this case, it should show, for me, digitaljoegeorge.com. All right, and last but not least, the third policy, reject. This is how it looks like. Again, similar connotation to the second. If the authentication fails, there's no percentage score. It's flat out rejection, right? If there's no SPF, no DKIM, or they're improperly configured, it fails authentication, your messages will result into a bounce. So send those emails or those reports to this email address. Make sure it shows a valid domain, your domain, not example.com. So in my case, digitaljoegeorge. All right, everyone. If you guys made it this far, congratulations. What a valiant spirit from your end. You guys are now email marketing experts. And if you happen to like this video, smash that like button, share it with your family and friends, hit the subscribe button, and tap on that bell for notifications so you can always stay updated. It's a great way to support me. And if any of you want to know how you can start and grow an online business, grow virally and epically on social media like I am, and also get access to more than 27 digital tools to speed up your growth in the online business world, then I highly encourage all of you to go here or click on the link in the description box right below this video and be part of my community. I promise I will take good care of you. All right, and if you guys know me by now, I will end this video with an inspiring quote to get you guys moving. So the quote is, "Success does not consist in never making mistakes, but in never making the same one twice."